Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelly and welcome to Live Consciously with Kelly. Today we are going to be doing an interview with Kristina, who is a blogger and sustainability advocate. She is from Canada and she is just honestly someone that I met online who I've really connected with throughout my sustainable fashion journey. So today I wanted to just speak with her for you guys to get to know her better and just connect. So Kristina, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you today. So I just wanted to kind of give people an intro for just for those who don't know you. So can you just let us know what you do? Can you just tell us about your blog, how you got started, and just kind of your journey overall towards sustainability?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for having me. It's always really fun to be invited to do these interviews. So I have a blog called thestoryofclothes.com, and it's a blog where I aim to provide reliable information and complete information, concise information about sustainable fashion and the choices and the concrete things that people can do to reduce the ecological footprint of their closet and to minimize, I guess, the human rights abuses that their closet entails. So how I got started, you know, I've always been passionate about sustainability. I mean, my earliest memory of this was, I think I was in grade school watching a video of acid rain, and I just remember being so traumatized.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. You know, the environment, that's important. And it kind of, you know, grew from there. It's something I've always been aware of. I went to law school and I studied environmental law, and I got a master's in environmental law as well. And I've always just been, I guess, a person that's really passionate about it, but I've always been, or up until a certain point, I was always surrounded by people who were also passionate about protecting the environment. So then that all changed when I got this job 2 years ago, and it wasn't it had nothing to do with the environment. And I found myself kind of no longer surrounded by people passionate about sustainability, and I was kind of shocked at the reality of how people either don't know or just have other priorities.
Yeah.
You know, because I wasn't used to that. And then around the same time, I watched the documentary, The True Cost, because up until then, I didn't really know, you know, the impact of the clothing industry, you know, the fast fashion or even just fashion, like clothes that are, you know, mainstream made, I guess. And so when I watched The True Cost, that was like it for me. I was like, wow, this is major, because a lot of people in North America just don't know. And I feel like the vast majority of people, once they find out, you know, that the horrible working conditions are, you know, surround people that make the clothes, and, you know, just the way that companies do business, unfortunately, just is horrible for the environment, and it has to stop. And I feel like once people find that out, they want to change. And so I thought, you know what, I think sustainable fashion is going to grow from now on as awareness grows, and I want to be part of that. And that's kind of why I started my Instagram page a year ago, and that's why I launched my blog 5 months ago. So you know, one thing that as I was you know, looking for the solution to the problem that True Cost kind of uncovered, I realized that there's a lot of information that, you know, it's kind of dispersed. You know, it's kind of here and there, and sometimes like it doesn't add up, and it's just very confusing, and it's a lot. So that's kind of where I want to come in. Like, I want to take that away. I want to minimize the overwhelm. And I've been enjoying that a lot. I'm still at a point where, you know, my blog has been up for 5 months, and you know, I've gotten good feedback about it. But I'm still at a point where I'm researching things. I'm really I'm really interested in learning more about textile science. Like right now I'm looking into all the different like alternative things. For example, like there's this company in Ukraine that makes sunglasses out of coffee, and it's completely biodegradable.
I have never heard of that.
And apparently it smells like coffee too, and they look great. Like I think it's called Ochis coffee sunglasses, OCHIS. And yeah, it's really cool. And then there's another company that's making vegan leather out of cactus or pineapple leather.
That is
there's
like
all kinds of really
cool ideas ever. Like I'm wearing cactus.
But you can't. I mean, like it's very, apparently it's very close to the real leather, but you can't tell that it's. Anyway, so it's, like that's super interesting to me as well. I'm looking into right now all the different, because I've gotten requests to kind of cover labor rights a little bit. So I'm looking into the Clean Clothes campaign and their kind of information on the different situations in different countries in terms of labor and how clothing is produced. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
So I didn't know up until now that you studied environmental law. So what were your goals when you studied that in school?
I actually studied international environmental law. So I studied things like the Paris Agreement. I remember made a lot of headlines back in the day when I was adopted. So my original plan was to go in the public sector, because I thought, I want to make a difference, and it's the public sector has the power, to adopt laws and govern. And I thought, maybe that's a really good career path, and it is on paper. So what happened was, once I actually, and I got there, and I helped write the carbon pricing bill for Canada a couple of years ago.
Awesome.
A few years ago. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. But you know what? The reality is definitely different from what I thought it would be.
So what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, what I found out is that citizens cannot rely on the government to solve all the problems for us. The government, I think it's a good institution, it's a necessary institution, but it does have its limits. In terms of, unfortunately, efficiency, bureaucracy, priorities, of the government in power.
I think a lot of times with a lot of these different movements, whether it's like societal norms or the environment, things like that, I think people put too much weight on like the government to do things, and like, okay, let's wait for the government to make laws. But I think, like you said, it just sucks sometimes because it's not their highest priority. So whether you think about the environment or like the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that, like they might do it because it's like the hot topic, or they might do it to get them reelected or something next year. But I think a lot of times after that, they don't really spend as much time like focusing on those type of issues and things like that. And I think it really just takes the community really to do most of the work, and maybe the government might help push things further faster, I guess, eventually. But I don't think just having the laws in place is like the end all be all sometimes. I think it really just takes the citizens and the community to really do most of the work. Absolutely. And you know what, having been kind of on the other side, one thing that is extremely effective I've seen is if citizens send in communications or letters that are very specific and well informed. Because I've seen people sending things in and being like, oh, it's so important to protect the planet for the future generations, it's so important to do the right thing, imagine the world as it could be. Unfortunately, like as an analyst reading this, it's like it's I absolutely agree with you, but it's the specific things. Like, for example, I've seen somebody start a petition on a very specific point that was affecting that person's life, and the person gathered, enough signatures on that very specific point. She knew exactly where in the legislation it was and what needed to be fixed. Mm-hmm.
And she got enough signatures and she put it through, and that made a legislative change.
Oh, wow. So
yeah. So that's
specific, providing like research and things, just kind of, instead of just saying broad, we got to help the planet. It's like, okay, here's one way we can do it. Here's the problem. Mm-hmm. Here's the solution. Like more concise ideas instead of just kind of like broad. So you recommend something like that?
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, yeah, it is important for, you know, government is definitely a cannot, but if it is important for the citizens not to kind of wait for the government to solve everything, because that action, and you know what, I don't mean that in a blamey way. Like there are budget considerations, like the government, you know, can't do everything for everyone. It's just not feasible. So yeah, it really takes, you know, strategic interventions of citizens, and the more the better.
And I think your other point earlier to the fact that joining like the sustainability movement can be really overwhelming. I know before I was sharing my story of like when I first started and just reading articles, and my story also started with watching A True Cost, and that's kind of when my eyes were open to like, oh my gosh, we have a problem that like no one's really talking about. Why is no one talking about it? And then the more I dug deeper and just reading articles and looking up just like the facts on how it affects the planet, I think was where it started. And then looking at how it affects the people, and it's such like a domino effect, and it can be so complex. How do you feel about, I guess was that kind of the catapult for you as far as starting your blog, as far as just wanting to give people the information and compiling it and putting it out there? Is that kind of like your motivation behind what your goal is with your blog just as a whole, just kind of simplifying it for people to make it easier to understand, easier to join something like this?
Exactly. Well, it's definitely to raise awareness as well. Because I think it starts there. You know, some people would say, oh, like maybe one person is too small to make a difference. But to me, it's like, well, if I make a difference in the lives of 10, 20 people, that's a difference.
Yep.
And who knows, maybe those 10, 20 people will go and talk to their friends and colleagues and stuff.
Yeah.
And those people will talk to their people. And so, yeah, my goal is to just raise awareness as much as possible, and once people are aware, you know, the kind of typical reaction is like, oh, I need to do something. This is not okay.
Yep.
And so my just kind of second goal is to come in at that point and say, yes, this is overwhelming. Here is help with that. Like here is like, it's normal. Here are some tips. For example, my last blog article was about how to tell if a brand is sustainable. And yeah, in that article, I talk about, you know, what are some signs that you can look for, because anybody can say they're sustainable. There's no regulation. Like you can't really define that in legislation, sustainable, ethical, because what does that mean? Those terms are too broad.
Yes. And
versus, you know, ethical versus like fair trade. Fair trade is like, okay, you're looking at the trade that happened. There's a price point that you can define. But ethical, that can refer to so many things.
Yep.
And it's really hard to trace and you know. So yeah, and the other thing is brands, you know, their awareness fortunately is rising in terms of sustainability, and brands, there isn't a brand really out there who will say no to questions like, are you sustainable, or like, do you know what I mean? They will try to give you something.
Yeah, some type of broad, like fluffy answer, like, oh yeah, we pay people wages, something like,
yeah,
how much?
Exactly.
How much do we pay them? Is it justified for the amount of work? And I think there was this other documentary, I think, or some video I was watching, and I guess some people are paid per garment, I guess, that they're completed. So instead of like an hourly wage, like let's say they were only able to get one thing done, so they're only paid for that one thing. And it's like, okay, what if I'm not able to produce, or what if I'm not as fast as someone else, or whatever the case may be? Then they have to rely on the idea that their wages could potentially be just unstable and unbalanced because of things like that. And then just even like the working conditions of where they work, and in the True Cost documentary, I think it was the Bangladesh factory. Is that, I believe that's what it was.
Yeah.
And like, I
Yeah.
think just understanding like how could, you're saying, okay, you're sustainable, but then you have people over here working in like terrible working conditions, and you might pay them living wages, but their working conditions are terrible. And it's just, they're never just going to throw their own selves under the bus and just say, no, we're not sustainable. We have, you know, children making our clothes and stuff like that. They're never going to just like outright say it. So I think, like you said, it's important to, I guess, be informed. And I guess my next question for you would be, what advice would you give someone who is joining the sustainability movement, or interested? And I guess the reason why I ask that is, not only can people be overwhelmed, but I think sometimes, and I'm sure you've seen it too, people that I guess try to be sustainable, they'll be attacked by other people like in the sustainable community, or, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or that brand really isn't sustainable, or you should do your research. And like, I guess I've seen it, I think, in one of our Facebook groups, where someone posted something and they're like, oh, they like, that wasn't a good choice. Why are you advocating for a brand that, you know, has one sustainable collection, but their whole business model sucks, and things like that. So I think a lot of times people want to try, but they're nervous of like being attacked online or putting out the wrong thing. I guess, what would you say for someone trying to, I guess, start the journey, or what advice do you give, or what advice, based on your experience, would you tell someone when they're starting their sustainable fashion journey?
The first thing I would say is it's not your fault. It is not our individual fault. It is not one, you know, single consumer that created this. So we live in a system, unfortunately, that was designed in a linear way. So we produce, we use, and we throw it out. Yeah. And you know, it's a production system that dates from a different generation. And it definitely has to stop, because the throw out, we're on a limited planet. Yeah. And it's going to reach its limits. Yeah, one planet. Yeah. We only have one. Can't really move to Mars. Right. And so, you know, it's about doing your very best. You know, if you feel overwhelmed, then just let yourself feel overwhelmed. It will pass. If you know, you know, really want something and it's not sustainable, well, look, don't beat yourself up too much. I think the most important thing is the cumulative like effect of what you do over time. So if you start small and keep building on that every day, and you can genuinely tell yourself that you did your best, then it's good enough. And you know what? Yeah, you're right. There's definitely, you know, there's debates in the sustainability space. It's like, oh, is this the right way to do it? Is you know, shoes are a good example. You know, a lot of people who are into the sustainability space are also vegan. So for them, it's like buying leather shoes is a huge no-no. But then I personally have found that other shoes maybe don't hold up, especially boots, and maybe don't hold up as well as leather ones. So I mean, personally made, and as well, like for example, like if you have leather shoes and you know, the best thing you can do is just to wear them out until they're done. So there's definitely a lot of room for kind of cognitive dissonance, where you kind of like, I feel like no matter what I do, it's not good enough and it's not perfect. 100%. So
I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and it's like, okay, I have to like wear these shoes until they fall off, which is good. You should use what you have. I think that's probably my best advice, really, for myself. Because I was kind of explaining too before our call that like I was just ready to like throw everything away and just start over. But I realized that's just really contributing to the waste problem that we already have. And instead of just throwing everything out, it's like, okay, I paid money to use this product, so I'm going to use it. And then when I need to find an alternative, I'll find a better one. So if I have body wash, for example, that, you know, isn't in a recycled bottle, or the ingredients are terrible, I'm just going to finish it. And then once I go shopping again, I'm going to find a better one, research a better brand. And I think, other than using what you have, researching is so important. And that's why I love your blog, just because it gives such good information, and you don't have to scour the internet for hours. And I know like sometimes if I'm looking for a sustainable deodorant or sustainable denim or something. I'm on the internet for like 3 hours. Like, how can I find them? How do I know if they're sustainable or if they're lying to me? Or terms like greenwashing. I think I did a video on that with H&M, their conscious collection and things like that. And like, it's just so many questions. So I think researching is important. And a lot of times it takes hours, maybe days, even for you. I'm curious to see how long it actually takes to compile that information. Yeah. It takes a while to get that. But I think once you know better, you're able to do better. And your advice of like not being so hard on yourself is really important, because I think you can just go down this whole rabbit hole of, okay, they have sustainable materials, but maybe it wasn't produced in a way that was ethical. Or even people talk about how like our packages are delivered and it uses fuel and emissions on the truck, and you just kind of like get it's like you like spiral literally.
It's impossible to win. Like our world is just, it's not designed that way, and it's not going to move to a circular model tomorrow. Even like I was reading about you know, Stella McCartney or some of or brands like that really take the effort to produce things as sustainably as possible and as high quality like clothing as possible. It's still, you know, the fact of the matter is the supply chain is scattered all over the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, even if you're using the absolute state of the art, best things for the environment, you're doing the different like factories are not next to each other. They're in different countries. You have to ship everything all across the planet, and that's emissions.
Yeah.
And you know, what's the alternative? If you do it in one country, well, you don't have the best equipment out there.
Right.
It's like
exactly.
you can't win.
Yeah,
you can't
literally.
win.
Unless you grow everything and make everything yourself, that's really probably like literally everything. That's probably the only way to do it. But I feel like in our world now, that's kind of impossible to do. And then another thing I think when I first started was like the whole zero waste thing. And I'm like, okay, is this even possible? I guess at this point, I think low waste, reducing waste is good. But zero waste, I just feel like that whole idea is just like an unachievable concept that it shouldn't even exist, if that makes sense. Just because it's impossible.
It does.
Yeah.
No, it is. So I actually I read an article not too long. Zero waste is it's not really possible, but it's like the same as low waste or lower waste. So it's just it's almost like a term that's completely unattainable, but it's kind of used as if we're saying low waste.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
I'm just like zero, like there's literally no way.
It's not possible.
Yeah,
it's
really
not
possible. I guess what was your biggest challenge moving into the sustainable fashion space, or whether it's like in your lifestyle? Was it finding information? Was it finding products? Was it just kind of giving stuff up in general? Was that like a struggle? What did you have any struggles, I guess?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, man, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely information is a big one, which is it was actually what inspired me, you know, to start my blog. Like I started researching and I thought this is taking forever and it's confusing, it's overwhelming. Yeah. And I feel like if I were to create a resource that helps with that, you know, I could actually, you know, help things. Yeah, another thing that I'm still struggling with right now is, like you mentioned, just letting go of things and you know, not being perfectionist about it. You know that whole you know, oh, I might need it again, or I paid money for it, maybe I should find a use for it. I know the sustainability argument adds a whole new dimension to that, because it's like, oh, I don't want to, you know, give it away. I don't want to donate it. I'm not sure like how will it be used, or you know, maybe I can find somebody who will want this. And it's just like I'm getting at a point where I'm kind of need to be maybe a little bit tougher on myself and just feel like letting things go.
Yes.
So yeah, something I'm working on. I don't know if you have any tips to share on that.
Yeah, I think it was the same way. And I did a closet declutter like a month ago because I had clothes in there just from forever. Like I knew I wasn't even wearing them. So I literally just made a pile of, okay, here are clothes that I can like give to like family or friends or like something like that, so I know where it's going. And then I made a pile of things I can upcycle and mend. Luckily, I can sew. I know that's not everybody's story, but luckily I can sew. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can like save these clothes. And then there was a bin of clothes that went to, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name. My mom actually put the clothes together, and it's like a woman and children's shelter, and they were accepting donations for clothing and things like that. So I'm like, okay, that's, I guess, more of a specific thing. And then I had a pile to like downcycle. So I'm like, if it has holes or if it's ripped and I can't repair it, and I wouldn't want to give this to a donation where someone else can wear it or they have holes, then I'm just gonna make a rag out of it for cleaning or something like that. So my pile of clothes to actually get rid of was like very, very, very minimal. So it took time to like create all those different piles. But typically I would have said, okay, just send it to Goodwill, or, oh, just put it in a bin, and it may or may not get used at a Goodwill. They might throw it away and stuff like that. So I'm like, if I have control over what I can do with the clothes now, then I will send very little to a place where they may or may not use it. So I think just kind of thinking like that has really helped as far as like limiting my waste and limiting clothes that end up in landfill. So like you said, it does, like research, it takes a lot of time. Figuring out what to do with your stuff, it takes a lot of time. So just kind of being intentional about it. I think that's the most important, not being perfect, but being intentional about what you can do with it. So for you, what is your go-to as far as new clothes and things like that? Is it thrifting? Is it just buying from ethical brands and things like that? What do you prefer personally?
So I'm actually quite lucky in the sense that I'm naturally a minimalist. So I've moved a lot in my life. So that's just kind of naturally trained me to be like, hey, is this really worth lugging around? Like, would I move this 5 times in 1 year across 3 cities? Would I? So that's just been that's been very helpful. Another thing that's kind of my go-to is a trading app called Buns. I don't think you have it in the US, but it's basically like Craigslist but an app, and you can't trade with money. Like it has to be object by object, like object for object or object for service. And I've gotten a lot of and I feel like we all have clutter in our house that we ended up with for whatever reason. It was a gift, we bought the wrong thing, we don't want it anymore. Well, Buns is a place where you can go and you put up like a listing saying this is describe the product, have a picture of it, and then people will message you, or you message other people, and you agree on a trade. And I've gotten a lot of clothes that way. So yeah, and honestly, it's been supplying a very large portion of what I need. Obviously there's some things you can't get, like underwear and shoes as well. I buy new from sustainable brands, under things as well. And I do thrift. There's a Value Village that's really good in Montreal, so I go there, but I try to I try to be like specific about what I want as well, and then not kind of be mindful about it. I try to be mindful about it. Like I don't want to just go and buy a whole bunch of stuff and then not really use it. So I love clothes. I'm someone who's very creative. Like I see myself one day hopefully maybe starting like I think it would be lingerie, because I don't know if I would want to make new clothes, even if it's out of sustainable materials. But yeah, I can definitely see myself starting, or maybe like upcycling and kind of selling it. I see myself doing that, but as we mentioned before, it's a very specialized skill set. I think it's a very valuable skill set, and it takes a long time to and practice as well to get. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. What about you? I'm curious.
So lately it's been thrifting. Honestly, I know it's been around for like generations and decades, but I've just started to say, okay, it makes sense because you don't have to use any new resources, and you're literally just taking what someone doesn't want and like, oh, okay, I like it. And the fact that I can sew, which is a plus. I think my thrift flip video that I posted, which is really cool because I saw the dress and I'm like, I really like the color, but it's just something about it that like I'm not loving. So I was able to just kind of like take it and just fix it up and just make it into a shirt that I really, really like. It's like one of my favorites in my closet now. And then some of the extra fabric, I'm going to make like a headband out of it just because I like headbands, as you can see. So it's just cool to be able to like rework stuff, not use new resources. And then just for the sake of, I guess another thing that I know people talk about with sustainable fashion is sometimes the brands are expensive. Rightly so. I think it makes sense that they are because they're spending time to find the quality materials, making sure people are paid properly and things like that. So it makes sense. But like you said, you're not just like shopping for the sake of shopping. So if I am going to spend $100-something on a dress or outfit or something that I like, like I'm going to be very intentional that like I need it or that I can use it for seasons. And I think a lot of times I think I just want to be mindful about what I buy, because if I can only wear it in the summer, it doesn't make sense. So if I find something and it's like a little more expensive, but I can like, you know, wear it in the summer and then have a jacket, I can wear it in the fall and I can wear it over seasons, or if it's something quality that I'll have forever, I think it's worth the higher price tag, if that makes sense. So I know a lot of people are just like, oh, well, I want to do I want to, you know, redo my closet to be more sustainable, but I can't afford it. But I think options like thrifting and things like that or upcycling make it a little more, I guess, accessible to people, which I think is important. And it is a valid point, just because sometimes it is expensive and I don't have $1,000 to drop on like 2 jackets and a dress. Like that's just not reasonable for people, you know? So
absolutely. And one concept I think is really important in that sense is cost per wear. So you take how much a garment costs and think how much will you wear it. So if it's exactly like you were describing, if it's something you can wear over seasons, you will wear at least 30 times. You know, if you make the calculation per wear, it's you know, not as not
as bad. Right.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? And this is just a random question just because I've seen it happen. So big brands like H&M or ASOS and things like that. And it appears that they are trying to do better. Would you encourage people to say, hey, they're trying to do better, it's okay to buy from them? Or would you redirect them to a sustainable fashion brand or just other methods of acquiring fashion? Just because I think the big debate is, are these larger fashion brands really trying to be sustainable in the big picture? Are they, you know, trying to just get over people and greenwash just to make a sale? Or do you think like they're actually trying? So what's kind of your take on that issue?
Well, I would definitely redirect people to smaller brands and thrifting and the more sustainable kind of you know, things that we talked about, trading and wearing things for a long time. It's a tough question. It is, because I feel like something is better than nothing. And I feel like, you know, putting myself in the shoes of the people who are, you know, in charge of these decisions and running these companies, you know, something is better than nothing. But ultimately, you know, I would only say, you know, if you absolutely have to have it for, you know, whatever reason it is, and, you know, we're all doing our best, but no one's perfect. If you absolutely have to have it, and the choice is between, you know, something at H&M that's not part of their, you know, sustainable collection, and something that is, or ASOS or whatever the company is, you know, if it's between them sustainable, not sustainable, you know, please choose sustainable. But if you can avoid it altogether, just because, you know what, there are more than enough clothes in circulation, more than enough, and we have for a long time. And I feel like if you are going to spend money, I think it's really important to vote with your money. And go for, you know, companies, like if you want to buy new, go for companies that are making a difference. And I know sometimes they're hard to find, which is why I started brand directory on my blog, just to kind of show like a shortcut that. But yeah, like I just feel like there's so many brands that are starting up right now that need, you know, we need that money a lot more than H&M does.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and then,
So go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say as well, one positive kind of spin of companies kind of doing this is the raised awareness. So I feel like, you know, just imagine you're somebody who has no idea, you know, the true cost, or has never watched the true cost, has never, you know, heard about, like, doesn't think about where the clothes come from. And they suddenly, you know, they see H&M and Zara, oh, sustainable collection. It kind of lights people up to the fact that there's a problem where, you know, maybe they wouldn't have, um, you know, known, or
Yeah.
like been that wouldn't have been brought to their attention otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I feel like you said, it's kind of like a complicated question because it's good and bad at the same time. Because it's kind
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
you are supporting a brand that's known to be fast fashion, that's known to not be like to pay people wages. But then I think
Yeah.
we have to like extend grace in a sense to say, okay, they're acknowledging that this problem exists. And even though they're not
Mhm.
totally redoing their business model, they're taking like a small baby step in that direction. And I think as a
Mhm.
consumer, if you are going to shop with that brand, that you vote with your money, as you said, and you know, we keep pouring money into their sustainable fashion collection, whether it be H&M or whoever, then they'll see, okay,
Mhm.
there's a demand for it, people are looking for it, let's keep doing
Mhm.
this, and less of what we were doing before. So I think it definitely takes, it's like a two-sided street. It takes them to, you know, acknowledge there's an issue, but us to kind of let them know like this is what we're looking for. But in the same
Mhm.
sense, I also agree that shopping smaller sustainable brands is better. And I think a lot of times you get better customer service and engagement. And I know a lot of the smaller
Mhm.
brands, like I can literally just DM them and I'm like, can you tell me about your brand? Can you tell me what
Mhm.
makes your company
Mhm.
sustainable? And they can kind of like give me that information offhand, or
Mhm.
just customer service, like, okay, I like this one, but can you tell me how it's made? How do I care for the dress that I'm getting? And they can literally tell me
Mhm. Yeah.
better ways, you know, to make my clothes have a longer life and things like that, versus just kind of like buying
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I think, like you said, it helps to bring awareness to people that might not be aware of sustainability if it's from a well-known brand. Um, but at the same time, kind of shopping locally, you can literally talk to the person that you're supporting, which also makes it a lot cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're supporting the local economy as well. I think that's becoming more important with COVID, and how, you know, people realized, you know, the power that big corporations can have, and how important it is to kind of invest in the local economy. I think that's one, you know, silver lining of this whole pandemic.
my last question for you is, where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years from now with your blog or with your fashion line that you want to start? Or like what goals, I guess, you want to accomplish in the space of sustainability and sustainable fashion, I guess, like 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, I'd like to be around in 5 or 10 years.
Yes,
I
yes.
like to still Yeah, I'd like to still be online. I'd like to, yeah, kind of get past the research phase, 'cause I'm still kind of learning as much as possible about all the different parts of it, all the different facets.
Mhm.
And I would like to, yeah, just have a lot of really informative articles that, respond to real questions that real people have, and kind of make life easier for them, make the transition less overwhelming for them.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just kind of like for it to become, kind of like a cornerstone, space in the internet, on the internet,
Yeah.
kind of like Equal Cult, or like Remake, or kind of those like really well established websites that are,
Mhm.
or Fashion Revolution even.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just like to kind of make that difference, and you know, be established, help as many people as possible, and yeah, maybe use what I learned to, like I mentioned, you know, start, you know, an underwear line, a lingerie line, or like what you were describing before, taking things from a thrift store and like giving them a new life. That is literally my dream life.
Yes. You can do it. I believe in you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, but for me, that's like ideal. Because one thing I don't love is kind of having, and especially for shopping in places like H&M and Zara, like I did before. One thing I didn't like before I even knew any of the facts is that there's a high chance that you'll have the same stuff as everyone else. I like unique pieces, like original pieces that are kind of very in line with my personality or even my mood, and I like to express myself through clothes as well. So yeah, I'd like to kind of develop that for myself, and maybe as much as I can share that with others. So this is something I'm very passionate about. So I do hope to be around in 5 to 10 years and grow bigger and help us, a lot of people raise awareness and ultimately, reduce the impact that the fashion industry is having on the environment, and make sure that the primarily women that are making our clothes, are treated with dignity and treated with respect, just because it's right. It's basic, it's so basic. It's hard to believe, for me to believe sometimes that this even exists.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
It's gone on for so long and no one's like said anything. It's just like baffling, like we're aware of this and it's still happening, and like no one's saying, hey, this is wrong, or hey, you should do better. And I think it's, I guess, a lot more prevalent now that it is an issue. Maybe like our parents or grandparents' generation, maybe it was like known but like not really, or it's kind of like in the back of people's mind, like they kind of know but they didn't care. But I think now people are like caring, and just the idea of just your goals as a whole and using your voice, whether it's through your blog or through your fashion brand, to be able to spread that message is like very, very important. But I do appreciate your time, and please let us know where we can find you on Instagram, your website, all of that. If you can just let us know what your social media handles are.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram, I'm no too fast fashion, all one word. And my blog is thestoryofclothes.com, all one word.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristina. I appreciate your time. You guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something. Please follow Kristina. She's awesome, has really great content just to get you started in the sustainability fashion world. And if you have any questions that I can pass along to Kristina, feel free to comment or message me. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.